Welcome everyone to Spherical Luminosity's YouTube Live. If you've heard me talking about humanity being in a window of acceleration and you've wondered what that means or have been curious to learn more about that, today's live session will hopefully be a really interesting one. So if you can comment on the chat and with your first name and where you're from, it would be good to see you all. Hello, Beta from Canada, Toronto, I believe. And Cindy, hi there. And Sandy is coming to us from Encinitas. And of course, Pam and Chris from New Zealand are here with us. Hello, hello. All right. And Christina from LA. Hello, Christina from LA. All right. And Anita from Chandler, Arizona. All right. And Erica from Tennessee. So there's people from all over the world here and some names that I haven't seen before, which is really, really cool. So welcome to everybody that I haven't had a chance to say hello to, including Brett Scott, who I haven't seen for a while. Hello. He was in Des Moines. All right. So hello, all of you. It's good to see you all. And my name is Karen Cheong. Many of you know me already and some of you don't. So for those of you who are new, I help to catalyze awakening and a rise in human consciousness by releasing people's conscious and unconscious blocks at what I refer to as frequency level, amplifying your awareness of the divine within so you can recognize and live the abundance and limitlessness of your true nature as infinite, indestructible consciousness. This is your birthright, and the time for humanity to awaken to this possibility is now. And this is even more pertinent than ever, given that we're in this window of acceleration that we're discussing today. So for those of you who are brand new to frequency work, don't know much about it, I can only give a brief overview in the amount of time I have. So after this, if you want to learn more, I'd recommend checking out episodes 1 and 2 of my podcast, Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, on this channel. Also, episode 131, which is everything that everyone wants to know about frequency work. Also an excellent episode to watch. And there's also the How It Works section of the website, sphericalluminosity.com. All right. So pretty much everyone, or at least most people, know about the famous scene in the movie The Matrix, the very first one, okay, where the main character Neo, who's played by Keanu Reeves, a very young Keanu Reeves, is given a choice between a red pill and a blue pill, which is going to determine the trajectory of his life experience moving forward. Okay, so Morpheus is giving him a choice, right? There's this famous scene that they're in. So if Neo chooses the red pill, he's going to wake up out of the illusion and see the reality as it really is, okay? Which in the movie is actually a very dark reality with a very dramatic good versus evil struggle, okay? If, however, he takes the blue pill, he's going to stay asleep and continue to ignore what's really going on. Okay? He's going to wake up the next day and everything is going to be as it was. And Neo has to choose. So that movie was oddly accurate in a number of ways, meaning about how our reality works. But one fundamental difference, which is really, really critical, is what you're actually waking up to. So in our case, if you take the red pill, instead of waking up to a dark reality where you have to fight like robots and such, and things in the Matrix, like what Neo wakes up to and must fight against, if you take the equivalent of the red pill, you can take advantage of the special opportunity available now and shift up in frequency resonance into the new consciousness or new paradigm. Okay, I use those two words interchangeably or synonymously, which is of a much higher frequency resonance. Okay, or you could choose to take the blue pill and stay in the lower, heavier resonance of the old consciousness, which is extremely evident right now. Okay, it's comfortable to us because it's so familiar. But the experience is filled with abuse of power, oppression, scarcity, greed, and self-doubt, not enoughness, okay? And all of the heavier, denser frequencies that we're seeing a lot right now in politics, in the media, in our leaders, and that many of us are experiencing in our lives. Okay, so Chris and I have called this episode the red pill versus the blue pill because with the window of acceleration that's currently open, we're at a similar crossroads, maybe potentially one that's a little bit less dramatic than Neo's, but actually one that has a huge ripple effect, okay, in terms of you and your journey on spirit level, which is really an infinite game, really. So, are we going to choose to stay within the old paradigm, the denser, lower resonating consciousness, or move up into the higher resonating new consciousness? And I just want to emphasize this. It's up to each of us to decide or choose where we're headed. Okay, so no one's being forced. It's all by free will. And it does not mean that you're better than someone else if you choose this. And it does not mean that they're worse if they decide to not wake up. Okay, it doesn't mean anything. It's simply a choice about whether or not you want to experience a higher level of consciousness. Okay, I just want to take the judgment out of it because there really is no judgment around it, right? It's really about a choice based on what you want to experience as a being. So to back up a little bit or a lot, okay, so many of you have heard me say that everything comes down to vibrational rate or your frequency resonance, okay, which is a different way of saying the same thing. All right, so the difference between consciousness levels is simply how fast the vibrational rate of the consciousness is. That's it. It's very, very simple. Things on spirit level are actually very simple. We as humans tend to complicate things, but truly it's simply that, vibrational rate. The higher the vibrational rate, the higher the frequency resonance and the higher the consciousness is. The converse is true. Okay, as well. The lower the vibrational rate, the lower the frequency resonance, the lower the consciousness level is. That's why it feels heavy to us. Okay, so all dimensional orders already exist in the infinite field of possibilities. Okay? Just like we discussed in the last YouTube Live, if you had a chance to join us on the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. What determines which one we're experiencing is primarily each person's individual rate of vibration, or like I mentioned, what I call frequency resonance. The higher your frequency resonance, the higher the consciousness level. It's kind of a mouthful, consciousness level, and realities or experiences of reality that are available to you. Okay, so in what I'm calling the new consciousness or new paradigm, we realize because we're in that higher vibrational rate of consciousness that we are one. Okay, so I just want to emphasize, this is not an intellectual concept that you could put on like a Hallmark card. You truly like feel it. Okay, it's an experiential or an embodied knowingness. It's not an intellectual idea. That's the massive difference in that higher consciousness level. So as a result, what we do, we realize that what we do has an effect on everything, on the all that is, and we are more sensitive to what is happening in the field or the oneness or the divine, whatever you want to call it. So what we choose to do, how we act, both towards ourselves and towards others, has a much more heightened sense of accountability, because we're aware of the ripple effect of our choices. That's what going quantum means. Okay, for people who've been listening to my work for a while, you'll have heard me mention going quantum. When you go quantum, you're aware of the ripple effect of everything. Okay, of your choices, your behaviors, your speed, everything. Okay, you have a sense of that. Okay, so there's a higher degree of awareness at this higher level of consciousness. And as a result, there's a greater emphasis on self-empowerment. Why? Because we realize that we co-create everything. Like truly, again, not as an intellectual concept, like an embodied visceral knowingness. We have a much higher or more bird's eye view of the events in our lives. Okay, so we have more distance. And many of you who've done frequency work know that I talk about distance from your thoughts and emotions. So you have even more of this bird's eye view of the events in our lives. This is what I call the big S self perspective. And not only just of our lives, but in the world around us, because we're able to maintain the perspective of what I call the big S self that I just referenced, which is the self associated with spirit, okay, as opposed to your little S self or the self associated with your ego mind, which is a much, much more constrained viewpoint of the world. All right. So because we're aware of our true nature as infinite, indestructible consciousness, having a human experience, our choices are not fraught with the same human distortions, like the fear of loss, or the fear of not having enough, or the fear of not being enough. To be at this higher level of consciousness, you need to have released these permutations of the distortion patterns of fear. Fear is such a huge, like, pain in the ass, really, honestly, okay, in our experience. And as you rise in frequency resonance, you'll find that your ability to experience fear really drops. I'm not saying you're never going to experience fear, but your experience of it is more muted. What like triggers your fear has to be much, much greater. Okay. It's just not within your experience as much. So you
just said your ability to experience fear drops. It's not your ability to experience fear, it's that you experience fear less.
Yes. So sorry, Chris is just correcting me for clarification. It's not that you, what did you say? It's not that your ability to experience fear drops. It's that you experience fear less. Okay. Hopefully that's clarifying. Okay. All right. Sometimes I take off and who knows if it makes sense. So hopefully that makes more sense. All right. So we experience greater self-empowerment because we recognize that we are the co-creators of our reality. And as a result, there is a higher degree of accountability. So no one else can do this for us. And we have to choose to be at a higher frequency resonance. And we need to focus on releasing the heavier distortion patterns to get to this higher level of frequency resonance. So the old paradigm is not only about the heavier distortion patterns of greed, scarcity, oppression, abuse of power, et cetera, et cetera. It's also about disempowerment, victimhood, martyr patterns, and the desire to hand over one's power to someone else so they can fix it for us, to advance for us, tell us that we're worthy, or anoint us as being awake, right? So this is really critical, right? This shift that we're making is huge. So in this time, what we choose is really important, like really important. It's hard for me sometimes to express this without making it sound like I'm trying to get you to do something, because I'm not. But it's interesting how much of a ripple effect this is going to have, not just on you and your personal life, but for you and your soul journey. Your choices are important right now. We can just think like, oh, I'm just randomly doing this like meditation. What difference does it make? It can make a tremendous difference. Because as some of you know, we have been in a window of acceleration where waves of highly vibrating frequencies have been moving across all dimensional planes through the all that is, for those who wish to rise up in consciousness to do so. Okay, so what does that really sort of mean? Okay, so there's this opportunity that happens, and in our space-time resonance, in linear time, it happens about every 5,200 years. It's a cycle, and it doesn't happen very often. And it's often foretold. So, I mean, people have heard this for a long time, right? I mean, the 60s, they talked about the age of Aquarius. The Mayan legends about this time period. A lot of the native peoples, like the Hopi peoples, Navajos, talk about this time of awakening that's about to happen. It is now. Okay, this 5,200 year cycle it's happening. Okay, so this window isn't closing in the immediate future. Okay, so before everyone freaks out about it, right? It's not like it's closing next week. Right? So just notice your own fear. Okay, just notice, oh, where did I have fear? Just notice that, because it's important to be aware of so you can confirm, remove it. Yes. But it's at the point now where it's just starting to close. Okay. It's kind of like it's been open for about, let's say, a year and a few months. And it's just been there, open with these waves going through. But now I've just felt it start to close. Okay, it's waning, just like the moon does when it reaches its fullness, and then each subsequent day, the moon's a little smaller in the sky. It's kind of like this. Okay, so what we choose collectively and also individually influences how long it'll continue to stay open and how quickly it will close. I just want to emphasize this because, again, we can feel like what we're doing doesn't really matter, or it's just like something that you casually do. But for those of you who are rising in your frequency resonance, you're aware of this. The higher your frequency resonance, the more you impact. You may not know what that impact is. Some of you are starting to be aware of it, but the ripple effect of your frequency resonance rising matters. It has, it's not like a 1-to-1 ratio of like, okay, well, now I'm rising this much and this much acceleration happens. If your frequency resonance gets to a certain point and higher, the ripple effect of your consciousness level rising or your resonance level rising has an exponential impact on human consciousness as a whole. Remember, we are one. Okay. So part of the reason that things have gotten more crunchy for everyone lately. Okay. So for some of you who are just like, oh my God, what is happening? The reason that is happening is because things have gotten a little more, let's call it urgent for lack of a better word. The greater pressure is happening to give you more momentum, to get laser focused with your self-accountability, to give you more opportunities to heighten your resolve, to look even deeper for your distortion patterns so you can continue to release them and to rise in your frequency resonance. So why it's felt crunchier and more intense. The crunchiness, the discomfort, it's like this big freaking neon arrow being like, hello, right here, where it's really uncomfortable, where it's really, really agitating for you. Yeah, right here, you need to release this distortion pattern so you can rise in your frequency resonance. Okay, like if it were all like, everything's great, it's all good, you think you'd do it? I mean, humans are wired in a funny way, you know? So we kind of sometimes, our higher selves are very smart. They realize that often discomfort is a really good motivator to get us to pay attention to what we need to release. Yes? Okay. So another thing that this crunchiness can reveal is how much what I call unified integration you are living your life in. Okay. So this will be familiar to those of you who've participated in my Mastery and Momentum Refining the Core Essentials program, okay, which is a very important tool set, right, for this time. So by unified integration, what I mean is I'm referring to the essential practice of being consistent in how you're behaving, the choices you're making, how you're treating yourself and others, okay, with your own frequency resonance, whether you're walking the talk, so to speak, rather than just doing the frequency work superficially, but ignoring how you're really showing up in life, both for yourself and others, okay? No one's watching you, right? Honestly, this is between you and your higher self. So it's all an illusion, really. So it's really important that we are in unified integration, okay? Because I've noticed that there are some people who do frequency work and aren't very accountable in this way, and they kind of get stuck. They don't really progress, and they want to know why. It's because they're not integrated, okay, through all of themselves. Remember, you're embodied too. Yes, it's not just on spirit level. It's all the way down through the embodiment. So what can this crunchiness look like? So that people are experiencing right now. I mean, it runs the gamut. Some people are just extraordinarily tired. Some people have gotten into car accidents because they're glitching out. Like literally people don't see them and they slam into them. Layoffs are happening at workplaces. Relationships are ending. Investments are tanking for some people. Okay. So please note, okay, this is not a punishment at all. Okay. It's not like you're screwing up. It's not like you should be doing something different. Exactly. Okay. It's not like, does that make sense? Like you're not doing something wrong. These are all indicators to show you areas where you have been tolerating a lower resonating frequency, to give you the impetus to release what you need to so your frequency resonance can jump at this time, so you can experience life in a different way, so you can experience expansion and more abundance. Okay. If you're always sitting in comfort at this and tolerating these lower level frequency resonances and things you don't really want to look at and distortion patterns that you kind of released and kind of haven't, you're not going to experience this jump that you're looking for in your life. Okay. So the new paradigm is about self-empowerment and accountability. And as a result, offers a much higher degree of sovereignty, authority to choose something different and to have a different experience of the reality. So long as you accept the personal responsibility for the way your life renders, okay? Or accountability is a different way of saying it, okay? Accountability for the way your life renders. So it's really I cannot emphasize this enough. Important right now to build your skill set. Okay. The new consciousness is about self-empowerment. We are shifting from this reliance on the ones who are the gurus, the teachers, the ones who seem like they got it, the experts. Okay. That's great. They can be great guides. And it is time for us to be self-empowered. Okay. To truly be accountable for your own frequency resonance and to know that you can raise your own frequency resonance. So that is in part why I gave Mastering Momentum, refining the 6 core essentials, so you could practice, so you could strengthen. Right? This is really critical right now. So one thing that I also want to note, okay, invariably, whenever I talk about moving into this new consciousness, people always worry about someone in their lives because we love them, of course, right? So people worry about their kids, the people at work, their parents, their pets, whether their lovers, their spouses, whether or not those people are going to move up. Okay. So I'm going to say something that may be a little controversial, but it's required for you to understand. My advice is to stop externally referencing and trying to control other people's experience or their awakening process because you're afraid for them or because you're afraid for yourself that you'll experience loss if they don't move up in resonance too. Okay. So I'm not saying that to be mean. It's much more powerful to do the work yourself, focusing on yourself, letting others be responsible for their own journeys because it is their choice, it is their free will. And when your frequency resonance rises, it may be that you inspire or catalyze that same movement in them, but badgering them to do it isn't going to make them change. Okay, or trying to get them to do something isn't going to make them change. Even with those of you with kids, you're like, well, how much free will do they have? Your kids are actually smart. If you rise in your frequency resonance, a lot of them want to follow you. You know, they're like, oh, like mom or dad seems they're changing somehow. Maybe like they'll start to ask questions. They'll want to do different things. You'd be surprised how many people, their kids just start wanting to listen to GFCs. I had a dear friend of mine said to me, I'm so proud of her son. So he's like 14 and he's sort of just really gotten into frequency work. He's had it around him for a while, but he's sort of really gotten into it himself. And a few days ago, when the field got really wobbly, he had the awareness that he wasn't very present in his body. And in the middle of like recess or whatever at school, he takes himself out to the veggie garden, sits himself on the ground to come back into his body, into his center. I was so, that's amazing. Do you know how much awareness that is? Do you know how much more awareness that is than most people have as adults? Okay, so your kids are smart, right? So give them credit. They'll follow, right? And so, and he's following because his mom started, right? And then his dad started, and here we are. So what's great is that when we're aware of what's happening on a greater scale, we can really use this time to refine, hone, and deepen our skills so that we're empowered to take advantage of this time while it's still open. So I'm going to answer questions now, and then we're going to get to the most important part, which is the group frequency calibration meditation to help us to release some of the heaviness that keeps us from moving into this higher level experience of the new consciousness. And also because there's some crunchiness to bring us more into alignment, okay, so that we can move into this period or through this period with more grace and more adaptability. That's actually the important part, and more clarity as well. Alrighty, so I'm going to take some questions now. I'm waiting for Chris. I'm just pausing. Okay, I can't read that very quickly. Sure, you can do that one if you want. If you feel like it's a good idea.
I'm just looking through the questions.
Sorry, we're just looking through the different questions. Okay, so just if you wouldn't mind being patient for a little bit, that would be wonderful. Oh, what skills are we sharpening? Well, if you pay attention to the 6 core essentials, the mastery momentum 6 core essentials, there are 6 core skills that if you hone them and you master them, it doesn't matter what level of frequency resonance you are. So meaning if you're a newbie or if you're someone who's more advanced, it doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum. These 6 core essentials are essential for accelerated awakening. So the 6 core essentials, just to tell you what they are confirming the removal of the distortion pattern, which is huge, huge, huge. Holding your space is critical in order for you to be able to hold your space, your frequency resonance, to not allow your frequency resonance to be affected by external circumstances. And just to go back to confirming the removal, that's really critical. Right? If you don't know how to confirm the removal of your distortion patterns, you're not affecting change through the denser, lower vibrating fields of your physical, mental, emotional realms. It's difficult to have the kind of acceleration that most people are looking for. In fact, the thing that I've noticed is that a lot of people who don't accelerate as fast are not confirming the removal as diligently as they could be. So those are the first two. The second one is called centering. The third one is centering into the 0 point, which is critical right now to be able to have more influence over your reality, to be in a place of stability, and ultimately in a place of infinite expansion. So the 0 point is really important. It's like the focusing of the lens into the physical reality. The fourth is what I call unified integration, which is what I mentioned before in this the discussion that I just gave. The fifth is, and why is unified integration so important? Like I said, it's because it is about embodiment, right? So it's not just about frequency work at the higher level. Yes, of course, that's critical. But if you're not doing the work through the embodiment, you're not in coherence, you're not in alignment, and therefore change will be slower. Okay. The fifth one is surrender from strength. Which is really critical. It's not surrender from a place of weakness. It's actually from a place of knowing your own strength and your awareness of your connection to pure source, so that you know that you can transcend anything and therefore are fully willing to surrender only to higher self, pure source. And the sixth core essential is neutrality. It's very difficult to have ascension if you are attached. Very, very difficult. So neutrality is something that is really key. It's not something that you can think your way to. It is something that you need to achieve on frequency level. So hopefully that is helpful. Those are the 6 core essentials that are required for accelerated awakening. So hopefully that answers your question. Can you please elaborate on crunchy? I feel like my momentum is slowed all of a sudden. Yes. So crunchiness to me simply means when your physical reality is having bumpiness. Okay. Because why is that happening? So why that is happening is because for many of you, if you start to experience acceleration on frequency level, okay, what happens is that on spirit level, on frequency level, everything happens instantly because there's no embodiment, there's no density. Make sense? So on that level, if everything is frequency, how long does it take for a frequency to shift? It doesn't. It's instant, really. Okay, so when we do frequency work, the change that happens on frequency level or at the level of the field, or what I call your frequency signature, is instant. What takes longer is your physicalness. Yes, your physical embodiment, because it is more dense. It is slower in vibration. Yes, that's why it seems more solid or is more solid. So when I say the physical, just for those of you who have not done coherence mastery, the physical means to me the physical, mental, and emotional bodies, because they're very human and denser in vibrational rate. Okay, so you experience crunchiness, or not you, this person individually, you, but one can experience crunchiness when your physical bodies, or meaning your physical, mental, emotional bodies, are not moving at the same speed as the change that you're experiencing on spirit level. Okay, so this can happen very much when we're not in the 0 point. So if you don't know what the 0 point is, I highly recommend that you check out episode 151 of Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, called the center. It's called Centering Into the Zero, or the center of the reality. Anyway, it's 151. It's about the 0 point. That one. I highly recommend that one. It's a very long technical discussion, actually, but it will tell you what the 0 point is and why it's important. So when you come out of the 0 point, everything gets very wobbly. Okay, the way you render is very wobbly. If you don't understand what rendering is, I do recommend that you watch episode 97, which is all about how the illusion of the of physical reality is created and how your body is created. So when you start to come out of the zero, meaning you're not precisely in the 0 point, things start to feel tiring or slow or like you're hitting a wall or like you're hitting a lot of stress or there's like all this chaos all of a sudden, or there's drama, or there are accidents, or there's more chaos, or there's more drama. You see what I'm saying? Bumpy. Yes. So that's what I call crunchiness. It's when you experience, let's call it lack of ease in your physical, mental, emotional experience of the reality. Right. And so that's what I mentioned. Like some people are experiencing this quite significantly right now, like I said, with car accidents or people losing jobs or relationships breaking up or death is a theme that's happening quite a bit for some people. Like people are losing people unexpectedly and that type of thing. That's up right now as well. So hopefully that answers your question about crunchiness. So essentially, the more that you practice the 6 core essentials, the more you can stay in that 0 point. Your coherence is critical right now. What does coherence mean? So if you're not sure what coherence is, I recommend the episode on coherence called, shoot. We have over 160 episodes, so I can't remember, of Mastering Your Will Through Frequencies, so I can't remember them all. But I can't remember it right now. I'm so sorry. If you really want to know what it is, you can write into info@sphericalluminosity.com and ask for that because I'm blanking on it right now. But anyway, so what coherence is extremely important. So coherence is when a system is working in harmony with itself. Okay. So it means like everything is attuned, aligned, everything is functioning the way it's supposed to, everything is moving efficiently. Yes. So the more coherence you're in, the more in the 0 point you're in, the more you are adaptable, the more you can shift with change without being rocked out of your center, without having that same experience of extreme crunchiness. Now, are you going to experience crunchiness to some degree? Yes, sometimes, okay, because that is often how you see what you need to release, okay? And it can be smoothed out and minimized to a large degree by how much in coherence you are and how much in the 0 point you are. So it reduces how painful the experiences are to you, and it becomes more like you have distance from it and you're like, wow, this is kind of uncomfortable or very uncomfortable right now, but I know that I'm learning from this. So you're aware as well of a higher level order that's happening. Make sense? It's not just the experience of the suffering or the pain or whatever it is from a human perspective. So that was probably a longer answer than you expected, but hopefully that was a thorough one and that was helpful. Okay. Oh. How do you get to your 0 point if I can't visualize your space? Use your body. So just put your hand right in it. So use your body. So your 0 point. So first of all, it's not just a physical location, right? So as you know, so again, watch episode 151. If you don't understand what the 0 point is and you think it's only about visualizing, or you think it's just a physical space, or any number of things that you might think, watch episode 151 again. Okay, so to back up, the 0 point is the intersection of space and time. Okay, it is the 0 point of space and time. It is the place from which the collective experience of the reality happens. It's how you tune into and align with the reality. So if you can't visualize, okay, that's okay. You need to be aware of this part of the body. So do you need to visualize to be aware of this part of the body, which is right in the center of your solar plexus? No, you can press with your hand. Okay, so you can do that if you're not a visualizing person. That's okay. Also, if you listen to the Centering into the Zero GFC, It's about me pulling you into that coordinate as well. Okay. So your job is to physically become aware of the space. So either by putting your attention on it, by physically pressing on this part of the body, by imagining it, however you become aware of it. Okay. The physicalness of you, because the 0 point of space is located in the center of the rendering that is you. Again, watch episode 97 if you don't know what I'm talking about in terms of rendering. It's actually a very, very important episode. Okay. So however you get there in terms of being aware of this spot, and you're in the frequency resonance of me pulling you into the 0 point, which is what happens in every single GFC, then you're in the 0 point. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay. So it's two things. One is your awareness and the other is the frequency resonance. Now, for those of you who are more advanced, you know this. You know when you're out of the 0 point because you're so used to being in it, because we keep going there over and over and over again. You can pull yourself back into it, and you are very aware when you're not in it because it feels not good. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, great. I'm challenged often with recognizing things that need to be released and the process of releasing them. Can you provide us some tips to this process? Sure. So you don't need to be able to name the distortion pattern in order to release it. It really has to do with how high your frequency resonance is. So it will become more apparent to you as your frequency resonance rises. Naming it is not important. So what do I mean by that? For some people, they don't know what it is. So meaning they might not think, oh, geez, this is low self-worth. Okay. They may feel it in their bodies. Okay. So you might feel it in your body as a contraction. Some of you are much more physical. So you may feel it as a contraction physically. Okay. So you might feel it somewhere in your body being tense, like a knot or something like this. You may feel it in your heart. You may feel like your heart rate accelerates. It may feel, just notice your body. The rate of your breathing might change or whatnot. Okay. So a physical thing. It may be that you are a feeler. Okay, so meaning you have a feeling sense or a perception sense of where in your field feels not good. Okay, so when you scan yourself, you're like, oh yeah, right about here, something's going on, right? It doesn't feel like the rest of it, right? So I'm talking about those of you who are feelers, not those of you who are not feelers. Okay, so for those of you who are feelers, you can feel where the dissonance is in your own field. Okay, that's another way of knowing that it's there. All right. The other way that you might perceive it is, again, so if you're more physical, again, it's like a heaviness in the body. That's another sensation that you could have, okay, in case it's helpful. All right. So when you are aware of the dissonance or the heaviness or the wherever it is, you might actually just be aware of it. Okay. So meaning you're not feeling physically, you're not feeling through perception, you just know. That's another possibility. Some of you just know. If you just know, you part of the discipline is to trust your knowingness. You're just like, oh, there's a distortion there. I know it's there. I don't know what the hell it is, but I know I need to release it. Great. So you focus on it. First, you would practice confirming the removal. So that's why the 6 core essentials are so important. So in Mastery Momentum, I give a whole bunch of tips from newbie all the way to extraordinarily advanced in consciousness level about how to basically confirm the removal. If you're not sure how to do it, then, and you're newer, then you can use the tool of confirming the removal GFC, which is for sale as a separate GFC on the website. You can use that. Okay. And that's $25. I haven't raised the prices for GFCs ever yet. And so it's very accessible, and you can listen to that with the knowingness of like, okay, I know I have a distortion. I don't know what it is. I need to release it, and just trust that you're releasing that thing. Okay. Because you have an awareness that it's there somewhere. Like, I don't know if it's spatial for you, or you just know that you have it to release it. Okay. So not naming. So I'm sorry, backing up, just saying that differently. Naming it is not critical for the distortion in order to be released. Okay. As you gain clarity in your own frequency resonance, you'll be more aware of what it is, because you'll notice that nuances of the same pattern can show up, and you're like, oh, there's that thing again, but it's different this time because it's triggered by something different. Okay. So So, for example, if not being loved is, I'm not saying this is true for you, but if not being loved is, or low self-worth is a pattern for you, you would notice that at first you're triggered when it seems like people aren't including you. And then you release a distortion pattern. So when people don't include you, you don't take it personally. You don't really think about it. They're just not including you. And then, but you realize that um, if if they say something, that you take it as a criticism. That's another nuance of low self-worth. Do you see what I'm saying? But it's showing up differently because it's a different frequency resonance. Make sense? Okay. So as your resonance rises, you'll get more clarity around it. Hopefully that answers that question. We'll just do a couple more and then we'll go to the GFC. Is our planet changing in frequency as well as us? Yeah, I love this question. So the Earth, Mother Earth, holds multiple levels of consciousness. And she's very key to us because we're embodied because of her. I mean, we don't have physicality without the Earth. It's just not possible. She gives us our DNA. She gives us our physicality. She is our mother. Like, there's just no question about that. All right. This movement into the new consciousness very much is being propelled by her as well. Okay. And so she's the one who dictates when windows open, when windows close, in large part. Okay. So how we respond individually and as a collective impacts things. And the Earth is really, really critical in that. And what happens is, as we shift in our frequency resonance, we get to access different levels of consciousness that the Earth herself exists at, if that makes sense. So we get to experience her in a different way, and one that is much more aware of her, because we're very unaware of her in many, many ways as a consciousness. Yeah. I mean, let's be real. We're trashing our planet. It's not going to take very long for us to destroy the planet at the rate that we're going at. And the Earth herself has, as a consciousness, an extraordinary amount of love for us. And so as we move into this new consciousness, we get to experience that love. It's extraordinary. It's breathtaking. It's not human at all. And it's truly unconditional. So I don't know if that answers that question, but yes, we get to experience the Earth in a different way. It's really spectacular. Are all the energy healing modalities helping to raise our frequencies? Well, I can't speak to all of them because I don't know what they all are. I would say it depends more on your practitioner than it does on the modality to a large degree. A modality in itself is always modulated by the practitioner and how high their frequency resonance is. So you could have an amazing modality. Let's just take, for example, I'm a big fan of acupuncture, and I've received acupuncture from different practitioners, or even like NSA, which is chiropractic. And the modalities themselves are powerful modalities by themselves. And I've received not great acupuncture and spectacular sessions of acupuncture. I've received okay NSA entrainments, and entrainments which have like changed everything in terms of how I relate to everything. So it really depends more, in my opinion, on the actual practitioner and how clear they are. The higher their frequency resonance is, it starts to clarify the modality that they're using in order to help others. So that's what I would say about that. And the effectiveness of the modality, like I said, depends on the practitioner and also on the modality itself. Some of the modalities that are coming out are extraordinary and are really helpful at this time. Like even things like RPR, for example, which helps to align the nervous system, didn't exist more than 10 years ago. It's relatively new. So things like this can really help. I think it's really interesting to, I'm very careful with the word all or none, okay? Because I simply don't know. And I would say that it's interesting. There are some tools that I've seen that proclaim to do certain things like advanced awakening or something like this. And again, it depends on the resonance of you more than and the practitioner than it does on the thing. Okay, because there are some things that proclaim that they'll do like accelerate awakening and change your life and blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff from like a mechanical thing. Mechanical things, okay, or physical things can only do so much because they aren't modulating at frequency level. That's the thing that causes the most change. Can they be helpful? Sure, of course. But the degree is, like I said, very much impacted by the resonance of the person receiving it, the person giving it, and how sensitive each person is, and at what level the modality is working at. Okay, so hopefully that is helpful. I can't see it. Sure. Okay. What is the best message to share with the kids of the new consciousness? What's the best message to share with them? Man, some of them are having a hard time right now because with the polarity that they're seeing, it's very difficult for them to be in this level of polarity and this level of density because their resonance is higher. So with kids of a new consciousness, who are the new consciousness kids, they really love frequency work. Yeah, so Chris is saying this, and it's true. And actually, I was getting to this point. He's saying it's because it's not just about their frequency resonance, it's about how rooted they are into their center. So, and I was just about to get there myself, because he's right. So here's the thing. A new consciousness kid, just to define a new consciousness kid for people who don't know who the new consciousness kids are. Okay, so these are kids who are being like born now, up to about age 17, 18 at this point, who are higher level beings of a higher dimensional order who have come into the physical embodiment at this time to experience embodiment and for themselves, okay, in their own journey in terms of their being a spirit or a being, an infinite being, and also to help humanity's consciousness rise at this time. Okay, so that is what a new consciousness kid is. They have not been able to enter the embodiment until now because the density was too heavy. Okay, only now has consciousness risen enough that they can come into embodiment to help in this way. Okay, so I just wanted to define what a new consciousness kid is. All right, so just because a child is between the ages of 0 and 17 does not mean they are a new consciousness kid. Okay, it just means that is the age range, or 18, I should say. That is the age range typically of new consciousness kids, okay, when consciousness was high enough for them to be able to come into embodiment. All right, so just putting that out there. All right, and the other thing is that with new consciousness kids, like I said, because they're of a higher resonance, they tend to seem wiser and they don't really understand polarity, and they have a hard time with humans acting with a lower, heavier, denser pattern of like greed, scarcity, abuse, oppression, etc. They don't really, it's hard for them to understand why people would act like that, okay? Because they come from dimensional orders where that wouldn't happen. Okay, so with these kids, it is extraordinarily important to do what Chris mentioned, which was to come into the zero. Like with these kids, if they're not in their 0 point, they wobble really hard. Okay, it's why we're seeing in that population kids who are starting to get into drugs or becoming suicidal, etc., because their resonance is so high and the polarity is so intense. They're not firmly rooted enough in their embodiment, and it's really, really challenging for them. So what I would say is, if you have a new consciousness kid, have them listen to frequency work, okay, because it pulls them into their 0. And they can relax. And they're like, oh, yes, I know this resonance. Oh, thank God. Right? So why does that resonance seem familiar to them? The resonance is familiar to them because, first of all, it's the clarity of them, higher self, themselves, and their awareness of their connection to pure source. Okay, that's what they're in training to. It's a higher level order of frequency. And I'm pulling you all into the 0 point over and over and over and over and over again. So when they're in that 0, because they're in that very specific intersection of space and time, it has them come into alignment, into coherence. And now all of a sudden, there's coherence between them at spirit level, which is of high level order, and their physicalness. So now they're not in despair. They're not like, this sucks. This life sucks. There's no point. I don't know why I'm here. Like, if you've heard your kids say this, and they're new consciousness kids, they don't know why they're here, and it sucks because what's around them sucks. Okay, that's what they see. But when they come into the 0, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do this. Right? It's like they become friends with their embodiment. And then they can start to come into a place where they realize that they have power to themselves come into this point. Okay. And to inspire and to lead other kids, because that's what starts to happen. It's amazing to watch the new consciousness kids. They start to lead, and other kids just want to be around them. Okay. It's happening with adults too, but it's really clear with the new consciousness kid. A new consciousness kid who is aware of their own frequency resonance on whatever level that is, and is in their 0 point really firmly, they start to lead. It's really remarkable to watch, actually. So hopefully that is helpful. Okay. It doesn't matter if the child is 17, 14, 12, 10, 8. Doesn't matter. They just start doing it. It's amazing. Yeah. So, okay. I'm going to now move into the GFC because that is the most important part of this discussion. Hopefully that was helpful to you. I answered as many questions as I could get to. There's a lot there. Thank you for all of your questions. All right. So here we go. Into the GFC. Settling in. Let's rise together. Becoming aware of your body. And as you become aware of your body, notice if you habituate into an awareness of your body. Like, yeah, they're my feet, they're my hands, etc. Or if you can really be aware of your body, as if it's the first time that you've become aware of it. Perhaps it is the first time that you're aware of it today. Noticing the heaviness of your body as it settles into whatever is supporting you. Noticing your mind. Can you become more aware of your body than your mind? Taking a moment to scan your body. So for those of you who are new, scanning your body simply means becoming aware of your body in a more systematic and complete way. So just being aware of it, for example, would be, or scanning it could be from the crown of your head all the way to the soles of your feet. Or the reverse, from the soles of your feet all the way to your crown. Perhaps you become aware of it from the outside skin level all the way to your center. Perhaps from your very core all the way out to your skin. However you become aware of the entirety of your body, please go ahead and notice that. Noticing the nuances. Perhaps your tummy is rumbling. Or you notice your breath deepening, or your heart rate starting to slow. Just noticing. Yeah. Good. On your next inhale, bringing your breath, attention, focus, awareness into your left hip. Now, if you can't imagine your left hip, put your hand on your left hip. Being aware of the contact between skin and skin, the heat of your hand against the hip. Or if you can visualize or imagine, becoming aware of the curve of this part of the body and the space within the curve. Good. And on your next inhale, whenever it becomes available to you, bringing your breath, attention, focus, awareness to the center of your left heel. Noticing the specificity of this point, the fleshiness of this point, the stretch of the skin. And now becoming aware of the distance or space between the very center of the earth and the center of your left heel. Imagining that distance. Or just knowing it, however you're aware of it. Good. On your next inhale, whenever it becomes available to you, bringing your breath, attention, focus, awareness into your right hip. Placing your hand onto this hip, becoming aware of the bony hardness of this part of the body. For those of you with more experience, becoming aware of the distance between the outer front edge of the hip and the outer back edge of the hip. There we go. Yeah. And whenever your next inhale becomes available to you, bringing your attention, breath, focus, awareness to the center of your right heel. Mhm. And becoming aware, imagining, sensing, feeling, or just knowing the distance between the very center of the earth and the very center of your right heel. Good. Noticing your body. Excellent. Becoming aware, please, of your heart space in the very center of your chest and your nipple line. Asking ourselves the question, how can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source? And that question, again, for those of you who are new, is how can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source? So as you ask yourself that question, whether you're aware of it or not, your higher self is quickening your own frequency resonance. So it's like you're starting to take a running jump. And I'm going to catch you on that top end of that jump and pull your frequency resonance higher. How high your frequency resonance is determines everything from what your life looks like, how you feel about it, how much a change you can adapt to, how much distortion you can release. Everything is dictated by this. So this is one of the most important things we do together. There we go. Yeah. Bringing your attention now, please, to the center of your solar plexus. So your solar plexus is between your belly button and the base of your sternum, which is that big, thick bone in the center of your chest where your ribs meet in front of your body. So if you find the midway point, that is the center of your solar plexus, wherever that is for you. So pulling you all further into the 0 point. There's a lot of scatter in the field right now. Okay, when we go through a lot of change, we can get very wobbly. And in the amount of change, we can wobble out of the 0 point quite easily, actually, okay, because so much is happening so quickly. So pulling you all back into the 0. Good. Bringing your attention now, please, to the midpoint of the spine in your neck. In addition to the midpoint of your solar plexus, please. I do recommend that if you are newer, to put a hand on each of these spots or a finger on each of these spots to help you keep your attention on these places. For some of you, you have trouble being in your body. So first, we are bringing you into greater coherence, okay, as a system. So centering you to the 0 point is a massive step. Bringing your physical body and spirit body together in more coherence is a refinement that's very important also. So there we go. For some of you, if you enter the state of the breathless, please do not be concerned. This is simply when your body stops breathing for what seems like a long period of time. This happens when the spirit and the physical body start to merge or come into very refined coherence. Your body will breathe when it needs to. When it needs to, please allow it to breathe. And as a note, this is not something you can try to make happen. It just happens. There we go. Better. Much better. Bringing your attention now, please, from the front part of your forehead all the way to the pineal gland, which is a sphere in the very center of your brain. Okay, just be aware of that space. You can bring a hand to the forehead if that's helpful to you. Just imagining, feeling, sensing, or knowing the distance between your hand and the very center of your brain. Mm-hmm. And all the way down the spine and the neck. In addition to your solar plexus, okay? Again between your belly button and base of the sternum. So giving you more distance from not only your own thoughts and your emotions, but those of others. You're not the only one who's wobbling. If you are wobbling, most people are because they don't know how to have any kind of internal stability. They're very unstable internally. So they just dump their distortion patterns everywhere. Or try to pull other people off center because it makes them feel better. So whatever it is, giving you distance. From that. And for a pretty significant subgroup, releasing the heaviness. That you're feeling in the physical body, or emotionally, or mentally. Okay, you can just feel heavy. without like actual sensation of weight, but it feels not good, like you're being squished a bit. Okay. There we go. Becoming aware of imagining, sensing, feeling, or just knowing your brilliance from deep within the center of you. So if you imagine a brilliance deep within, that starts to get brighter, stronger, and more intense as it radiates out in all directions around you. Good. Yes. Becoming aware now, please, of the inside of your lower ribs. So, for those of you who are newer, your lower ribs are basically, if you're a female, from underneath your breasts, okay, to the base. If you're a male, from like your pectoral muscles all the way down. And the inside means the side facing your organs, not the side facing the world. Okay, that's what I mean by the inside of your lower ribs. Yeah, just a moment. So, as humans, we have this attachment to the way things have been. We always reference what has been, or we tend to. Okay. All right. So I'm going to release this attachment to the way things have been. If we're always clinging to the way things have been or to the way things were, then we can't be in surrender and move into the way things are becoming or how they are right now, which is actually the most important point. Okay. So releasing the attachment. Some of you are time looping into the past. Some of you are like way time looping into the future. Okay. So meaning worried about how things might be, anticipating how things are, wanting to control the outcome in the future, that type of thing. imagining a very deep, beautiful blue that starts to expand from deep within all the way out through the lower ribs, both front and back and on the sides. Yeah, and eventually out in all directions. Better. Excellent. Very good. Bringing your attention now, please, into the very center of the heart space and right to the xiphoid process, which is right at the base of the sternum. Okay, that big, thick bone in the center of your chest where your ribs meet in front of your body. You trace it all the way down to the bottom where it goes from bone to flesh. It's a little tender when you press on it. That's your xiphoid process. Okay. So depending on who you are, this will look different. So meaning for a subgroup of you, this is about like paralyzed will, like you're wanting to move forward, but you're not sure what to do and you're kind of stuck because you're not sure what to do. So you're kind of frozen. For others of you, okay, there's a sense of like victim, okay, or disempowerment. For another subgroup, this is the fear of the unknown. And a real fear of letting go. Softening into these two spaces. And if you don't know what that means, imagine melting into or dissolving into these spaces. There we go. Better. Yeah, keeping your attention in the xiphoid process and right at the lower back half of the brain. This is clarifying resolve. So we're going to release the fear that's here, okay, in terms of moving into whatever it is you choose to move into, okay, whether that's a higher frequency resonance, or just more stability. And in this resolve, clarity of what needs to be done. Good. Or released. Okay, so whether it's active or release, which is more of an internal movement. Yeah, good. Nice. Good. Bring your attention now to that xiphoid process. And about 3 inches or 7 centimeters directly beneath it in a straight line towards the belly button, clearing out the pain body, because your pain body has a memory of you before the frequency work was done. So just clear it out. And reset you to the higher resonating version of yourself. Your integration is going to be much, much faster. There we go. Everyone take a nice deep breath in. Hold it for a second or two, releasing it with some sound. Blinking your eyes open, looking at something inanimate. All right, guys. So we look forward to seeing you in about a month on our next YouTube Live. Thank you for joining us. Bye for now.